I was raised Catholic, and as a child, I remember thinking about God and heaven and hell and thinking about death. I don't know what my age was, but as early as I can remember, I thought about these things because they were introduced to me at a very early age, the concept of death and whatnot. And as I lived through experiences of family members dying and going to their funerals, I thought even more deeply or more realistically. I tried to imagine or envision what is death? What will it actually feel like to not be here anymore? And I don't know when it started, but it was probably somewhere approaching the age of 10, 11, 12. Every so often, it would almost always happen when I was going to bed at night, but later in life it would happen during the day. I would be in my bed, it's time to go to sleep, and I would catch myself thinking about these things again, specifically thinking about death, thinking about and imagining my life, the future of my life, and then ultimately dying and trying to continue imagining what it will be like after. And I could not do that. I could not imagine that it was possible. And out of nowhere, when I was in that mental space, I would get hit with this sort of panic. My heart rate would spike. I would almost be like sweating. Sometimes I would get up out of my bed and pace, and it didn't necessarily last that long. And this didn't happen every night, not even every week, not even every month, but it would happen. And I became aware of this dread and profound fear that I had surrounding the fact that I'm here right now and that this is going to end. When I would think about death, when I would realize that death is a reality in this place, I would sort of panic. And again, later in life, I did, I remember it happening in a classroom one time. And I felt like so trapped and helpless and, again, in a mode of panic. Um, I remember, again, probably around the age of 12, being introduced to the idea of reincarnation, Buddhism, through a teacher. I was experimenting with my own belief system and trying to find something that felt right because the beginning that I started with through Catholicism didn't feel right. Um, Buddhism didn't, at that point, didn't feel right either. I was trying to figure things out. I was toying with ideas of atheism, of just actually believing and or deciding to believe that there is nothing and it's just this, and when you die, it lights out. But that certainly didn't help or didn't stop that dread and intense fear of death that I had to the point where I couldn't even think about it. I couldn't even imagine it because it would bring on those feelings of panic. And what I'm going to describe is sort of my way out of that, the journey that I took or that I had just basically the series of events. I'm going to describe the series of events that led to me escaping or working through or finding my way out of that intense dread and fear of death. And it wasn't really necessarily intentional, it was sort of due to circumstance because I never thought about drugs, I never thought about compounds, I never thought about psychedelics or anything like this. If I did think about them, my thoughts were directly influenced by the DARE program, drug programs and assemblies we used to have about drugs when we were small children, teaching you that you should just say no to everything and it's all bad and it's dangerous. You'll end up dead or addicted or in prison. So I was like, that's just, I never thought about that stuff. I never thought that it could ever offer a healing experience or a positive experience or anything like that. but it was, I believe the first time was in seventh grade, probably in health class. It must have been health class. We were assigned a drug project, put into groups, and each group got a drug. Some people got, or maybe they got a classification of drugs. So some people got maybe amphetamines or speed, something like this, cocaine, methamphetamine, whatever. Some people got what they called hallucinogens. Some people got, weed, whatever. I don't remember exactly how they broke down the categories, but we were assigned a category and we were, told to go do our own research and kind of write a paper or do a little project on it. And that was very minimal at that point. And I remember we were either assigned LSD or it was just hallucinogens. I honestly can't remember the exact details because that was a very long time ago. But then I know that later in high school, few years later, same thing, another drug project. This time I think we were allowed to choose, and I chose LSD in particular. And in the process of just searching the internet and trying to find information for my project, I came across so many positive things. And it's not all positive. There certainly are horror stories. There are situations where somebody just for whatever reason was hardwired the wrong way, or in such a way, I shouldn't say wrong, but they were hardwired in such a way that they had one experience with such substances and it changed their life for the worse forever. But overwhelmingly, the information was showing that people had positive experiences. It changed the way they looked at their life, offered them the ability to work through fears, or really what was most interesting to me, I was learning about Timothy Leary, and I don't know the year or the name of the study, but it had to do with mystical experience. And an overwhelming number of people had mystical experiences, or what we could call religious experiences or spiritual experiences, when they were given LSD. And that was fascinating to me because I never had an actual spiritual experience or any type of connection with that felt real to God or spirit or source or any type of entity that could be described as an angel or a demon or anything like that, anything supernatural. All of my experience of religion was just in my head. It was just thoughts and beliefs and maybe me trying to convince myself, and I would never know whether or not I was just lying to myself. I never had a real experience to base anything off of. It was just words from a book written by men, or books, I should say, because I was again toying with different ideas and religious philosophies, I guess, in a very light way. I was thinking about things a lot, but again, it was just thinking. They were thoughts. And I remember after doing that project in high school, for example, this must have been freshman year. I remember then deciding that I didn't want to really pursue any type of drug. I wasn't going to go out looking for LSD or trying to buy it. But I told myself if I ever do try any drug, it would probably be one of these psychedelics, mushrooms, LSD, something like this. Eventually, if I remember correctly, it was just through word of mouth because this plant and extract versions of the plant was being sold in head shops, smoke shops in our area. I heard through word of mouth that there was something called Salvia divinorum, and they said it only lasts 5 minutes. So I was like, that's pretty interesting because I had read some very, very intense experience reports and trip reports about things like mushrooms and LSD, and that they last for hours. And I thought, how am I going to, I mean, what if I don't like it? And I'm going to be stuck in this state for hours. So the idea of something that was a plant, first of all, and not a man-made chemical, that was a plus. And then learning that it only lasted about 5 minutes or so. Truthfully, it lasts a little bit longer than that, but the peak experience is really only about that long, 5 to 10 minutes. I started to research that, and I was reading incredible things, Some of them, many of the experiences were sort of nonsensical, other ones were very profound. Um, the overall, what I mostly read was just how intense of an experience it really was, and how it was sort of like reality shattering. It actually was taking people truly away from, or it sounded like it was taking people away from what we see and touch and hear and smell and taste every day, and throwing them into this other experience, this realm or something. And I was already reading that there were a lot of people having similar experiences, like experiences that I could group into a category, and then others were just very unique. And just reading about the compound, I learned that it was an atypical psychedelic. And also reading the experiences, I could tell just from the experiences that it wasn't like what I had read from LSD or psilocybin or anything like that. It was very unique and very interesting. Eventually, I had the opportunity offered by a sort of a new friend, a newer friend that I had made, to try some. That they were going to buy some, and they were all going to have it. So I went with them, and I had the experience. I'm doing my best to try to keep this as short as possible. I'm already 11 minutes in here. It would be difficult for me to describe the experience, but I can say that the first time I didn't like leave my body, and I probably didn't do it correctly. We were all sitting in a circle in a chair, and everybody just took a turn hitting it. And it really, I didn't even hit it. I cleared the chamber of the bong from the person who hit it before me, and it was completely full, like milked. So it worked. To say the least, it worked. And what I felt, this that change into a different state of consciousness, what I felt was something that I never could have imagined that it would be. Because I had been reading for years at this point. I mean, did I spend literally years reading? No, but I mean, on and off, I was researching these things even outside of the projects for school because it was interesting. And everything that I was imagining before, everything that I thought it was, everything that I read, I now, I guess, could understand better what people were trying to say, but I saw that it's unexplainable. And the state that I experienced that first time, it blew my mind. Needless to say, it blew my mind. I had no idea that what I was feeling was even possible. I had never been drunk. I had never smoked weed. I had never done anything. This was the only thing that I was ever interested in. Just by circumstance, there was some weed in the bowl in order to make sure that the salvia didn't suck through into the bottom. So I did get after effects of that, and that first experience was maybe a little bit confusing because I wasn't sure what was what. It was a come up into this very light salvia experience and then come down. And the peak of the experience involved intense laughter. This probably, I don't know if I can say the laughter was more profound than anything that I had experienced previously, but it was a different flavor of laughter. Um, it was just unbelievable. But it was nothing like what I had read about, like contacting entities or anything like this. It was, my eyes were open. I remember a visual effect. It was almost like the people around me were in a pop-up book, like they were made out of paper and two-dimensional, somewhat like cartoon characters, but not really cartoon. It was like photorealistic pop-up book visual kind of experience. My eyes were open. I was laughing. I was attempting to communicate. It was really pretty confusing, but also fun and enjoyable and profoundly interesting to me. I remember that some time had passed, and I had another similar experience with the same friend who sort of brought me into that group, and it was even lighter. And again, sitting up, eyes open, everything kind of very casual. And it wasn't that special. It was still interesting, but it wasn't like earth shattering, or I definitely wasn't learning any type of lessons or anything like that. It was more just experimenting with a new state of consciousness. So that was two times. And I remember eventually having my own, because those two times somebody else had the salvia and they were just offering it to me. Eventually, I got my own, and I tried to do it in a more in a way that seemed more responsible and in line with what my intentions were, which was to actually engage with the experience in such a way that I was like looking for answers, or just trying to connect, I guess, more intimately with the experience and not using it as a way to trip, so to speak. Um, and I don't know if that makes any sense, but I went by myself into the woods, into a spot that I knew was safe, that seemed safe, that I had been in times, many times before, where people don't really pass. And I took a large hit, as large as I could handle without coughing. I held it in as long as I could. I let it out, and I did that again. And the second one was probably much smaller, and I didn't hold it in for as long. I thought of doing a third, but I couldn't even use the lighter anymore. I couldn't even use my hand. So I set the piece down to the side and I laid down on my back. I was laying flat on my back on the floor, on the ground, I should say, on the earth, in such a way that there's no way I could like roll down a hill or fall off a cliff or anything. It was just, I couldn't get any closer to the earth. So in that way, that felt safe to me. And a point is that none of this is, I'm not recommending anybody do anything that I'm talking about. I'm just describing a past experience. One point is that there should always be somebody there, a responsible sitter, if you will, to make sure that nothing bad happens so that you don't hurt yourself. But that wasn't my experience. And in a way, I feel like not having people around actually allowed me to engage with the experience, because I wasn't sitting up, opening my eyes, and trying to communicate. Nobody was trying to communicate with me. There were no distractions. And what I remember was being in the presence of a female entity that felt almost like a caregiver, like a nanny, like a in a nursery of young with younger people. I wouldn't say entities or beings, it just felt like people. There was a woman who was looking over, like in a nursery, like with little people around. I don't know if they were children. They felt like children. They felt very playful and innocent and almost mischievous in a way, like how children will play little jokes and laugh, and it's a lot of nonsense. But this woman was like the responsible caretaker. And there was chanting. There was a song that was it, in my mind, I guess. It wasn't in my ears, but I could hear it. Almost like when you visualize something in your mind's eye, you can kind of see it even though you're not actually seeing something. It was that, but audio. I remember opening my eyes in confusion and sitting up because I didn't know if I was standing or sitting or laying. But when I sat up, I saw the earth, the ground that I was on. I realized what was happening, and I remembered that, oh yeah, this is all happening because I smoked salvia. I had forgotten that. So I laid back down and experienced a much lighter version of what was going on, a much more disconnected version, as I was sort of leaving that space with where there was a nursery and the woman and the children, and pretty quickly coming down from the experience. And I thought that that was just such an amazing thing. Like, I was so lucky to have this experience where actually there were beings and they were in a way communicating with me. It felt like the children or the chanting of the childlike voices was what was communicating with me. The woman was aware of me but didn't have a message. I didn't feel a message. It was bizarre, to say the least. I went on trying to make this story not so long. I went on to have probably 3 or 4 more experiences like this, each time increasingly more intense, even though I wasn't taking in more of the extract. Um, it's like my tolerance which supposedly is a real thing with salvia. My tolerance was getting weaker the more that I tried it, or it was easier to quote unquote get there the more I tried it. And what my experience became eventually was that, and to this day, even though I haven't done it in a few years, if I have a certain amount, what happens is I revisit the same place, if you will, the same space with the same beings who have the same energy, and it all feels like I'm peeking through a window into the afterlife. It feels like I'm stepping into, temporarily, sort of poking my head through the door into the afterlife, into this space from which we came and to which we will return after this physical life. And there are these beings that are, some of them, the younger ones, they feel filled with joy. They're singing, they're dancing in a way. They're like gleeful, incredibly happy to see me and excited that I will be joining them again. And it's, the message is like, come on, let's go. This is going to be amazing, or something like that. It's a lot of positive feelings. And at the same time, I have encountered or witnessed or been in the presence of, been face to face with beings that feel a lot older, or at least a lot more mature, who are much more cool, calm, and collected, less outwardly playful and silly. In some cases, even outright strict. They come across strict, or very serious. They seem like older, wiser beings, but of the same kind, in the same space, but maybe at a different level. It's a dissociative sort of experience. It's not like, it's really, like I said, if without having had the experience, it's like nothing you can imagine. And the words that I'm saying are actually misleading. It sounds like I'm talking about being in a physical space and clear as day, seeing that there are people. It's abstract, but at the same time tangible. But again, what has blown my mind about the whole thing is that it's repeatable, at least in my case. Have I had experiences that are outliers and just absolutely bizarre and they almost seem like they hardly fit into that? In my case, it feels like they all fit in some way. I'm accessing some corners and edges or layers or levels of the same space, whatever that space is. But yes, some experiences have been more strange than others. In general, on the whole, though, all of them have been, it's as though I'm visiting a place that I know, and it doesn't really change that much. It changes in the sense that I'm visiting this place at different moments in my life. I'm sort of stepping away from my life, poking my head through the door, checking in and coming back out, but it's the same place. It actually feels like a gateway to the afterlife. And it's almost like I don't want to say it like that because it sounds like I'm so sure of that. But I don't know what other words we have to use to call it. What else could I say it is? They don't feel like alien beings. It feels like us without bodies. It feels like what I am, or what I was, or what I will be, however we word this. It feels like what I am when I'm not in a body. That's who these quote unquote people are that I sometimes will call spirits. But spirit sounds too ethereal. People feels more real because the experience is real. In fact, coming down from an experience when I have poked my head through or stepped one leg into, or sometimes it feels like I've entirely entered that space. Coming back down from that experience, eventually I remember that, oh yeah, this is all happening because of salvia. Because in the moment, I normally actually believe that I either am, that I'm dying or that I have died and I'm now back in that space. And it's hard to even remember this body that has a name and has a family and all that stuff. But as I come down, I start to remember that. And the feeling is that the state of consciousness that I was in after I poked my head through the door and I was in this sort of pre-life or afterlife level of existence. When I'm coming down, the feeling is that my consciousness is being constricted, and the state that I was in is being crammed down into this sort of tunnel vision. My peripheral vision is actually being limited. It's closing in. Everything is becoming more limited. My sense of feeling, my access to that state is closing. And I come back down into this tunnel vision, which ultimately I realize is what this life is. And then I'm back here. And it's like a dream state just fell over me again. And I have this avatar body that I'm here in now. And it actually feels less real here than it does in that other state. Um, and later on, I went on, I had tried psilocybin mushrooms. I love psilocybin mushrooms to this day. Every so often, they can be in a completely different way. And that would be a whole nother video, a whole nother topic. But in a completely different way, I find great therapy. Psilocybin mushrooms are therapeutic for me in an emotional way. They open my heart. But I had tried that. I had tried LSD. The thing with salvia, and of course I've tried cannabis and used it. And later, and I went on to even try alcohol. And yeah, the thing with salvia is that it doesn't even feel like it's the same thing as those other things, because you forget that you have, at least with a certain level of extract or with a certain potency of experience, the extract really doesn't matter because we all have different tolerances, right? But the experience itself doesn't feel like the effects of a drug are being felt or being experienced on my body. It feels like I'm just taken out of my body to have an experience somewhere else, and then I'm put back into my body. And that come down that I mentioned, coming down back into my body, feeling like, oh, this is an avatar. It's like falling asleep and going into a dream. And for a second, I'm lucid. And depending on what's going on in my surroundings, and this is the reason why personally I like to be alone completely, which is not recommended. I like that because when there's people around, they act the same way that dream characters have often acted when I am in a lucid dream. And that is that I'll try to tell them like, yo, this whole thing is a dream. This is an illusion. We're in avatar bodies. I just saw the real world. I just saw what's really going on the outside. This is something else. We're here in a way playing a game, or this is like a play. This body is a puppet. I come back and I feel like I'm like I'm dropping knowledge or something like this, like I'm trying to help people wake up, and they look at me like I'm crazy, and immediately try to convince me that that was just yeah, that was just the salvia. This is what's real. You're just you're full of shit. This is what's real. I'm not gonna sit here and believe that I'm not real. Of course I'm real. This isn't a dream. This is reality. It's exactly what dream characters have done in a lucid dream. When in a low level state of lucidity, I thought that I could wake up. Let's say I'm with my sister in the dream, and I want to wake her up so that she can realize it's a dream. And then later, when we both wake up, we could talk about it and say, "Hey, look, wasn't that cool? We shared that dream together." But it doesn't work. Dream characters always push back. They always try to convince you that no, you really don't have all that power. That's not really how it is. This is real. You need to worry about this. You need to be afraid of what's going on here. It's just ego. It's just what the ego does, trying to survive. And then shortly after that, again, whether I'm surrounded by people or not, coming down from the experience, coming back to Earth and the Earth experience with this body, this life, whether I'm around people or not, eventually I do feel like there's a threat of danger at some point. I'm driving behind the wheel of a car. I mean, of course, there's things you do. You want to be safe. I'm not ready to die. I don't want to die right away. There is a function of this sense of self, the ego, or whatever it is. It makes sense. It's to help us survive. But the point is, and in my case, it was salvia. The experiences I had with LSD or psilocybin mushrooms or cannabis, none of that had any effect on fear of death or making me more comfortable with death. Though I have read that a lot about psilocybin, and that makes me curious, but maybe I'll never know because I had already had these handful of experiences with salvia that changed the way I look at the world forever in a positive way. Like so much, I grew up, and I still have issues with this with certain parts of life, especially if I find myself off track. But I grew up an anxious kid, just having anxiety in general, general anxiety about a lot of things. Um, and that manifested in the most sharp and intense way when I was thinking about death. But that vanished. It went away. And after, like, again, maybe it was only 3 or 4 experiences of actually doing it alone and in silence and just letting myself really go into that experience and kind of learning how to let go and allow the experience to show me whatever it's going to show me, or just be whatever it is. Getting a little bit better at that each time, I was able to integrate more of the experience. And integrate is a tricky word here because it is, once again, it's a dissociative experience. It's bizarre and confusing. But somehow I've been able to take something positive away from it, which was that I don't know if that really is the afterlife, or that, you know, whether those are, I don't know. I can't act like I know because I'm here right now. I'm in this tunnel vision reality where all I can really access is this. And through certain practices I can kind of broaden my awareness a little bit. But relatively speaking, relative to that experience, this is just very limited here. I'm constricted here. Um, but what I took back was that I have no reason to worry about death. Death will come, and I have now seen within my own experience. I now know that it's not a big deal to die. It's probably going to hurt a lot on this side, and as I'm leaving, and the feeling of leaving family, it's tragic. It's tragic. When people in my life die, I'm not sitting here with a smile on my face saying, oh, yeah, I know they're going to a better place because I've been there, or something like that. And I know it's a place filled with unconditional acceptance and joy and love. And it's like the true reality. It's just leaving a life of illusion and entering a higher state that is more closer to the source of reality. I can't just tell myself that. Still to this day, when somebody that I love dies, maybe more than ever, I feel pain. I feel a deep loss. It's tragic. I can't act like I've somehow mastered death from this side. It's from the other side. It's like after the moment of death, I know because of what I've seen that everything's going to be okay. And that to worry about that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even matter. And I've learned the value and the power in letting go of all of that mental stuff, letting go of worry, and just being in the moment and having actual experiences, really feeling experiences and savoring every moment of it, because as each moment passes, it's gone. And I continue in the present moment. It's this ever changing present. We can't really hold on to anything. I've learned that. And in my case, the greatest teacher, because there are teachings, we can read books about this, there's YouTube videos. I still like programming myself with this information, reminding myself of this information through content that is available, books, videos, audio, whatever, lectures. But having experienced it myself, that has been the greatest teacher. Experience in general is the greatest teacher, but I'm speaking about salvia, I guess, that it changed everything for me. It showed me, it's almost like, I mean, it doesn't last. That's the thing. It doesn't last, and we fall back into the dream state here. But for a short moment, it's almost like this hack, this refresh, where I can let go of a lot of problems, a lot of things I'm worrying about. And I have learned, and it's sort of obvious in my case from the experiences, is it's not something you want to do every day. I can't imagine even a person wanting to do that. But if they did it, if you did something, If I were to engage with such an intense experience frequently, I would live a disconnected life. I wouldn't even be connected to my family or friends that much because I would end up obsessed with that state, or I would end up almost wishing that I was dead or something just because it's so much more real than what this is. And this probably sounds terrifying to some people, especially if somebody that I love hears this and they don't understand it. It sounds scary. And I really think it would be a horrible idea for somebody who was suicidal to do these things. Though at the same time, I could imagine that it could bring a change of perspective and maybe have them let go of their fears and turn their life around. At the same time, I think it's very dangerous. I think somebody in a suicidal state, or in a particularly depressed state, who had the same exact experiences that I had, which there's no way to control that, but if it were to happen, they might be given the courage to actually go through with it. And that's incredibly dangerous. And once again, I will reiterate, just like I said in the beginning of this video and at another point in the video, in no way, shape, or form am I encouraging anyone to do this, to do anything illegal, to put anything in their body. I'm not even saying that it's good at all. If anything, you should take this video just as take it at like it's an entertainment thing. This is for entertainment purposes only, I should say. If anything, I'm an actor, I'm playing a role. I wouldn't take any of this seriously if I were you. But somebody, at this moment, I don't have the comment in front of me. I'll probably throw a picture up. I may as well. But somebody left a comment and they asked some questions that pertain to some of this information, and I thought I would talk about it. And many of you know that I have another YouTube channel that I started very shortly after that, probably that first 3 experiences with salvia. I started a YouTube channel because of people that I found inspiring at the time. I wanted to make videos like them, and it's been something that I've always loved doing. But the old channel is called the Salvia Shaman. It's still up, and I decided to leave it up, even though when I look back, I do feel like, in a way, some of the content, or much of the content, it was irresponsible the way that I made it. I was painting this picture as though salvia is this amazing thing that's going to change your life and, make everything better, or, help you to dissolve your fears of death like it did me. And I've met other people where that has been the case. But with more years and I guess more maturity and simply learning more information about what can happen, I now know that it's irresponsible to say that something is great just because it was great for me. Because the truth is, everyone that I've met in person, nearly every single one, and online, though it's easier to find people I agree with online, the overwhelming majority of people I know who have tried it, they hate it. They hated the experience because most people are looking for something fun and recreational, and that's not what the experience is. It's the most intense thing that I've ever experienced in my life. It has taken my most intense fear, and every time, because it is, like I said, an experience that is repeated, every time it takes that most profound fear, the fear of losing everything, the fear of death, and it shoves it in my face and sometimes down my throat, and forces me to swallow it and accept it and actually begin the experience of it. It's terrifying. It is truly terrifying, the experience. It's not fun. But in my case, there has been great value in that. But the point is, I had gone on later to read about people, and though it's difficult for me to understand, I can't say that these people are lying. I found even a small community of people. I wish I would remember the link or like where I had found this, but I remember reading about people who had had experiences. I'm sure it's easily accessible online if you search for it. But people who had even just tried the dried leaf, not even an extract or a 5X or something like this, just a little bit. And they never, it flipped a switch for these people. There are people where, and I don't know how you could predict this, But for some individuals, it flipped a switch and they never really were the same again. And I mean in a negative way. They were experiencing um, dissociation. There's a word for this. Oh, depersonalization. It ruined their, like, they weren't able to focus on their university studies or anything like this. It like changed them. It fucked them up pretty bad. And I never had that experience and I didn't understand that, but now I know that that's an actual possibility and it's I don't understand it, but it's a real risk. And this is risky stuff, which is why I don't talk about it anymore and I don't recommend anyone do it. But I wanted to describe this, especially after that comment that I read, because this is just the honest truth for myself. After those experiences, I actually had content to base my own spiritual or religious beliefs on. I had something to base it off of. I saw that there was actual substance there, and from those experiences, I've shaped my entire religious beliefs. If you can call it religious, it's not because there is no actual religion. But I base my all my spiritual beliefs that I have really started with that. Those are the roots. Those experiences are the roots of my spiritual beliefs. From that point moving forward, after having those core experiences, I don't think I ever need to do it again, though I'm sure that I will because it's so fascinating. And after much time passes, there's always, I almost, and it's funny because I need like less and less, just a tiny little, sticking my little toe through the door is enough to remind me of the experiences that I have had. There's a space, this very light space that I can enter into where in that space I now have access to the memories of the experiences and I don't even need to have the full-blown terrifying experience. And the memories alone remind me like this is what the experience is. You no longer need to be doing this. Go ahead and just chill out and live your life because you've already learned what you need to from this. And I've even had that somewhat, like I mentioned, some entities, some people, some beings, whatever they are, that were more, they seemed older, they seemed wiser, more strict, more serious. I've even received that energy from them, that sort of communication. It's like telepathic. They're not speaking, but the message is that, like, what are you doing here, man? Like, you already know what this is. Why are you coming here? You shouldn't be here. It's not your time yet. You have things to do. Just go back. Whereas the younger, childlike, silly, joyful group, right at the base level, right when you are welcomed into this space, they're just stoked, super stoked to see you. And they're not. It's like they don't get it. They don't care. They're just happy to see you, which is amazing because it's a warm feeling to be welcomed into that space. But the whole message is, the whole lesson that I learned was just about letting go. Whether it's letting go of the fear of death or letting go of the desire to go into that space, just letting go of everything and just being. Because if, with the times when I am able to let go and just be in that experience, it's not so terrifying. It's still intense, but it's not so terrifying. The terror comes from fighting and gripping and clawing and trying to pull my way back away from the experience that is happening in that moment. And that can be applied to any experience that happens within this life on earth. I've learned that when something's happening, you kind of just have to let it happen and go with it. I mean, when a painful life experience is happening that you really don't have control over, is what I mean. It's already set in motion and it's happening. To try to fight it when you know that you can't and it's out of your control, it makes your life a living hell. You sort of just have to accept it and let it pass over, or go with it and maneuver as the experience is taking you with it. But anyway, that is the reason that not the reason. It's that, again, those experiences are the core of. Maybe it is the reason. Maybe it is the only reason that I have any type of spiritual beliefs, because I was finally able to have what you could call a religious experience or a mystical experience or a spiritual experience due to this amazing plant that supposedly only grows in one place, or that originally grows in one place, or that we can say only has one group of people on the planet, as far as I know. And I haven't done recent research on this, but every time when I had looked it up, it's in Oaxaca, Mexico. Mazatec people, as far as I can remember. I may have pronounced the name wrong, but it's fascinating that there's only one group that has a relationship with this plant traditionally. In the United States, we have this weird. It's not right. It doesn't feel right. Like I said, the first time I tried it, it was just like this thing to do for fun or whatever. I mean, the group I was with, they were, and maybe there is no right or wrong, but from my experience and the from the lessons I had learned from the experiences that I had using it in what I felt was a responsible way, comparing that to the first time, and that was very irresponsible and almost disrespectful to the experience itself, and disrespectful to like our ancestors, because that's who these beings are. We're family. It's us. It's us on the outside. Our group. I think there are groups. I think there are sections. I don't know what the hell is going on there, but it feels like there is some organization. And it feels like there are people that recognize me when I come back. But I don't really recognize them. I recognize the space, and it feels familiar, and it feels like I'm returning back to the space that I came from. But it's also confusing and bizarre and difficult to hold on to. I again, I didn't think I was going to do this, but I will, because again, most of you, I think many of you actually found this channel because of the old channel. I left messages saying that I wasn't making videos there anymore and I had this new channel. So, yeah. For anyone else, maybe if you were interested in the things I said in this video, I'll go ahead and leave the link to my old channel from many years ago, where I actually made specific experience reports about some of the things that took place after ingesting salvia extract smoke into my lungs. Um, but again, though at the time, I think when I made the channel, it truly was to promote a positive outlook on the experience, because I heard so many negative experiences from everyone I knew and people that weren't integrating the experience into their life or learning anything from it. Their whole their whole overall reactions were like, "Fuck that shit. That sucks. It made me feel bad. I'm never doing it again." It terrified me. So it was like a one and done novel experience. And I guess I wanted to communicate the good that could come from it, because I was one of the few people I knew of that was experiencing positive outcomes. And then, of course, later, because of that channel, I found others who did as well. But I hesitate, and I have hesitated for a long time to make a video addressing this again. One, because I think I've already talked about it a long time ago, but more importantly, it's that I don't want to promote this, because now I know that there are people who it has changed their life for the worse forever, and you can't take back that experience. Some people are tormented by the experiences that they have had, or the experience they had when they tried it, or when they tried anything. Compounds, molecules, drugs in general. I'm lucky that I've never had something that had like a negative long lasting effect, but the truth, again, with maturity and just with more learning, access to more information, I've learned that it can be horrific for some people. And to look at any of this stuff like it's this thing that you can just do, and you're going to download lessons and it's like automatically your fear goes away. Again, I hope I didn't make it sound like that either, because the experience itself can be viewed as traumatic and terrifying. It's the processing of it and the integrating it. How I did that, I don't know, but I somehow through repetition did that. And that's where the value came from. That's where the learning lessons came from. It's not like you smoke something and then there's just some magical lesson that gets downloaded into your system, and now suddenly you don't have the fear of death. It was the repeated facing the fear again and again and again through repetition that worked for me. But once again, I hesitate to even talk about this because it sounds like I'm promoting it, and I am not promoting it. The idea is just to explain what my past experience was and why I say things like, we are not the body. I've seen proof for myself that we are not the body. Proof isn't the correct word because proof implies that I could just show you something or tell you something and you would believe me. But I felt the need because of a recent video that I made and the urge inside to make more videos like that in English, reminding everyone about what's ultimately going on here. It feels necessary to provide background information. And that's, I guess, what this is. Like, why do I believe that we are not the body? Why am I so confident in that? Why do I talk about that? Why would I? Yeah. It actually feels good to talk about this stuff. I like talking about this. Even though I know it invites, I don't know, it invites weird things. The reactions, I guess. But anyway, I can't believe I talked for 51 minutes. But this is it. I'm that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I'll see you guys next time. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next time. If this video happens to bring up more questions, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'd love to make more videos speaking about or responding to questions, because it was ultimately recently that comment that made me think about making a video like this. And I actually don't have the comment in front of me, so I'm sure I didn't fully address it, but I knew that this was a part of it. That whole story about starting out kind of being told what to believe, then doubting it heavily, then completely losing faith in it, then feeling fear every time I thought about death and panic, and then ultimately somehow being, just by circumstance, really, I think it was just because of those health classes. I don't know how long or when I don't know why I would have ever researched drugs on the internet if it wasn't for the drug projects in health class in middle school and high school that sort of pushed me and motivated me to do my own research. So I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for the public health, the public education system, for doing that. Because if we weren't encouraged to do the projects, I probably just would have believed for a very long time everything that they trained us to believe earlier, which was that it's all bad, don't do it, it'll ruin your life. But in my case, overall, what I would say is that my experiences with psychedelics, naturally occurring plant psychedelics, they have, the experiences have allowed me to sort of take this weight off of my shoulders, this weight of the fear of life. It lifts it off. My heart opens, and not with salvia so much, but with, I think about mushrooms right now. It opens your heart in some cases. It shows you. It has shown me a much different, a very different perspective on life than I had ever been able to have access to just by living in a sober state of mind forever. Because maybe it's just me, but I know many people like me. I get very much trapped in my mind, thinking and believing and imagining and visualizing and daydreaming. It's easy for me to be trapped in my mind and not even be accessing my heart or my soul or anything bigger. It's all just physical body and then being trapped in the mind, convincing myself of this or that. but having experiences that in a way have blown my mind and taken me out of it, where I have this other experience that is so difficult to describe, and then I'm put back into my body that has the mind in the brain, and it's all trying to understand and constricting everything into little bite-sized uh, phrases that I'm able to communicate, or that I can try to communicate the experience. Having some experience that is separate from this, that feels very much separate from this, has been um, priceless for me in my life. And for me, it's not something that I like. I don't do this all the time, which is why I never talk about it anymore. I made that original channel, and I used to talk about it so much because I was still in the phase where I was every so often having these experiences and repeating them. So it was more fresh in my mind, I guess. I mean, it was just more what was on the surface of my conscious mind. And now, years later, it's like I don't do these things. I'm not obsessed with the experience to the point that I feel the need to do it all the time. I actually think that's a bad idea, and I'm focusing on my physical life and just being here and being present for the most part. Um, so maybe saying that, maybe people will understand, because I know every so often, though it has stopped recently. It hasn't been a thing. Every so often I have seen people that it's like the feeling I get from the comments was that people want me to keep talking about salvia, or it's like they want me to do it again and make another experience report or something. But that's not really like what's up. That's not really what I should be doing. I've been shown that from the experience itself that that's not what I should be doing. But even if I wasn't, I feel that it's not. Uh, to continually like escape and remind myself that this is an illusion, that doesn't really help me. Um, Being here and being present and living this life primarily sober all the time is what feels like is allowing me to actually get things done here, and create goals and reach goals and create new goals and experience progress and really be connected with what life is. My life right now is so much has so much more substance than it did in those earlier years when I was just more searching all the time, searching for answers or questioning everything, like, why am I here and this and that. Letting go of all of that and just being in the present has changed everything. And it's been a very long process with ups and downs, but that's what life is. It's a very beautiful thing that we have access to here. It's a temporary experience. This will not last forever. I don't want to spend all my time here running away from the experience, escaping from the experience, or altering it. I'm actually trying to feel as much as I can and be present and really feel into what this is and what this feels like and really experience this life. And I wish the same for everyone else. We can only search for these answers or question everything so much before you realize you're kind of just wasting time, and you need to just live your life. Get the ball rolling, do something, do anything, live it. You know what I mean? It's easier said than done. I'm very much, in general, like an observer kind of person. But have experiences, you know? Reading books is great. Uh, learning information is great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's incredibly valuable. But experience is the best teacher. And we should be having experiences in this life. Not fantasizing about them or imagining them, but actually having them. So thank you everyone for listening. This has been a long video. um, I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Bye.